What is going on, guys? Bad back for another Commander deck tech. Today we're diving into, pun intended, Merfolk with Kumena Tyrant of Orazca. Kumena is a 3-mana 2/4 legendary Merfolk shaman. Tapping with with 3 different abilities that we can activate. Tap another untapped Merfolk you control. Kumena can't be blocked this turn. Tap 3 untapped Merfolk you control. Draw a card, and tap 5 untapped Merfolk. Put a +1/+1 counter on each Merfolk we control. Since I've got a cough, and I'm trying to get done with this real quick so I can get it out to you guys, let's just dive right into the creatures. There's 31 of them. I'm going to go through this a little bit fast, so be sure to pause the video if you need to look at them, any of them for any longer. Enclave Cryptologist, 1 mana for a 0/1 Merfolk Wizard with level up. Levels 1 and 2, we get to tap it to draw a card, then discard a card, and level 3 and up, we tap it to draw a card, and it levels up for 1 and a blue. Next up, Deeproot Elite, 2 mana for a 1/1 Merfolk Warrior. Whenever another Merfolk enters the battlefield, put a +1/+1 counter on target Merfolk you control. So it acts as kind of like a mini Lord effect. Harbinger of the Tides, blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. We can cast it as though it had flash if we pay an extra 2, and when it enters the battlefield, you may return target tapped creature an opponent controls to its owner's hand. Really good bounce effect if we need to get rid of a big attacker. Kiora's Follower, green and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk. We can tap it to untap another target permanent, so we can untap a land if we need an additional land, we can untap a creature if we need a blocker, etc., etc. Master of the Pearl Trident, blue for a 2/2 Merfolk. Other Merfolk creatures we control get +1/+1 and have Island Walk. They can't be blocked as long as defending player controls an island. One of the staples in modern Merfolk, Master of the Pearl Trident. Just really good creature, Lord effect. Gives our Merfolk an additional bonus. And just really good at any point in time. Merfolk Looter, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk. Tap to draw a card, and then discard a card. So kind of like the level 1 and 2 of Enclave Cryptologist. Next up, a new card from Rivals of Ixalan, Merfolk Mistbinder, green and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Shaman. Other Merfolk we control get +1/+1. Another Lord effect. No additional bonus on this one, but really, that doesn't matter with how big our Merfolk are going to get. Next up, another pseudo Lord effect, Metallic Mimic, 2 mana for a 2/1 Shapeshifter. As it enters the battlefield, choose Merfolk. Metallic Mimic is a Merfolk in addition to its other types, and each Merfolk we control of the chosen type, or each creature we control of the chosen type of Merfolk, enters the battlefield with an additional +1/+1 counter on it. So all of our stuff just enters the battlefield with a +1/+1 counter on it. Next up, Silvergill Dowser, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard. Target creature, we can tap it to give target creature -X/-0 until end of turn, where X is the number of wizards, or not wizards, number of Merfolk or fairies we control. So if we've got a big attacker coming at our face, and we've got a bunch of little tiny dudes, we don't really want to chump because it has trample or something like that, we can just tap our Silvergill Dowser and make those big baddies feel not so big. Next up, Stony Brook Banneret, 1 and a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Wizard with Island Walk. Merfolk and wizard spells you play cost 1 less to cast. Really good effect, just good cost reduction. Makes this next card cost 1 mana, which is really sweet. Silvergill Adept, 1 and a blue for a 2/1 Merfolk Wizard. As an additional cost, we can either reveal a Merfolk from our hand or pay 3. We'll probably be revealing a Merfolk from our hand. And when it enters the battlefield, we get to draw a card, which is pretty sweet. Next up, Cold Eye Selkie, 1, and then a hybrid mana, blue-green, for a 1/1 Merfolk Rogue with Island Walk. Whenever Cold Eye Selkie deals combat damage to player, we get to draw that many cards. So if it stays a 1/1, we attack and they can't block or whatever, they take it, we draw 1. If we make it a 4/4 and they don't block, we get to draw 4. So again, really good with all of our Lord effects. Cryptoplasm, 1 a blue and a blue for a 2/2 Shapeshifter. At the beginning of our upkeep, we get to have Cryptoplasm become a copy of another target creature. If you do, Cryptoplasm gains this ability. So we can just kind of keep making our Cryptoplasm a copy of whatever we need it to become. Next up, Genre of Secrets, 2 and a blue for a 1/3 Merfolk Wizard. We can tap and untap Merfolk we control. Target player puts the top card of his or her library into his or her graveyard. This card is really good against like control decks or stuff with a lot of scry effects. So let's say they scry a card to the top, and then we just say, nope, you're going to mill that card. So, pretty good. Also, you know, if we get a card put on top of our library and then we decide, we don't want it, we can just mill it. Jade Light Ranger, 1 a green and a green for a Merfolk Scout that's 2/1. When it enters the battlefield, it explores, then explores again. So to explore, we reveal the top card of our library. If it's a land, we get to put it in our hand. Otherwise, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on Jade Light Ranger, and then we either put the card back on top of our library or into our graveyard, and then since it explores again, we get to repeat that process. So we either get to put 2 lands in our hand, put 2/1/1 counters on Jade Light Ranger, or put 1 +1/+1 counter on Jade Light Ranger and put a land in our hand, whichever outcome it becomes. Next up, some protection for our Merfolk. Kopala, Warden of Waves. 1 a blue and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Spells our opponents cast a target of Merfolk cost 2 more, and abilities our opponents activate the target of Merfolk cost 2 more to activate. So just some really good protection if they want to activate it. You know, a tap ability that taps down our stuff or something, I don't know. Or if they want to target us with a kill spell, they got to pay an additional cost. Low Mage Mentor, 1 a blue and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever a spell or ability we control counters a spell, we get to put a 1/1 blue Merfolk creature token into play. And we can also tap 7 untapped Merfolk we control to counter a spell. Now, 7 Merfolk might seem like a lot, which it is, you know, 7 creatures to counter a spell. But, you know, if they're playing a board wipe, it's definitely worth it. Next up, Merfolk Sovereign, 1 a blue and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk. Other Merfolk creatures get +1/+1, and we can tap it to make target Merfolk unblockable this turn. So, pretty good. Next up, Miro Regery, 2 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Soldier. Other Merfolk creatures we control get +1/+1, and whenever we play a Merfolk spell, we get to tap or untap target permanent. So we just get to kind of keep tapping and untapping all of our stuff, get to keep valuing out our opponent, and eventually we just win. I don't know why Miro Regery is the card based around why we win, but, you know, value. Swift Warden, 1 a green and a green for a 3/3 Merfolk Warrior with Flash, and when it enters the battlefield, target Merfolk we control gets hexproof until end of turn. So if they want to kill our Kumena or something, we just flash in Swift Warden and say no. Next up, Thada Adel Acquisitor, 1 a blue and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Rogue with Island Walk. And whenever Thada Adel deals combat damage to a player, search that player's library for an artifact card and exile it. Then that player shuffles his or her library. Until the end of turn, we get to play that artifact card. Now, we do have to pay the mana cost of it, but usually if we're getting a Soul Ring or a Mana Crypt or a Mana Vault or something pretty cheap that, you know, most of the time it'll boost our mana, it works out. Next up, Wake Thrasher, 2 and a blue for a 1/1 Merfolk Soldier. Now, you might be thinking, 3 mana for 1/1, that's not very good. But whenever a permanent we control becomes untapped, Wake Crasher gets +1/+1 until end of turn. So, it can get pretty big pretty fast. Fallow Sage, 3 and a blue for a 2/2 Merfolk Wizard. Now, again, a 4 mana 2/2 might not seem great, but this is actually one of my favorite cards in the deck. Because after we've played all of our lords and everything, we can tap this to give Kumena unblockable, and whenever it becomes tapped, we get to draw a card. So we get to essentially use Kumena's first and second ability for the price of tapping 1 creature, which is insane. Next up, Forerunner of the Heralds, 3 and a green for a 3/2 Merfolk Scout. When it enters the battlefield, we get to tutor up a Merfolk card, shuffle our library, put that card right on top of it. Our library, that is. And then whenever a Merfolk enters the battlefield under our control, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on Forerunner of the Heralds. So if we counter a spell with our 1 creature out and we put a 1/1 Merfolk into play, boom, our Forerunner gets bigger. We, you know, I don't know, we play our Deep-Root Waters and then we play Forerunner of the Heralds, boom. Oh wait, actually that one doesn't work. Never mind, forget I said that. But if we have our Deep-Root Waters out and our Forerunner out and then we play a card, we get 2 1/1 counters. So that part's pretty good. Next up, Seafloor Oracle, 2 blue for a 2/3 Merfolk Wizard. Whenever a Merfolk we control deals combat damage to a player, draw a card. Pretty simple enough. If our opponent's playing islands and we have all of our stuff have island walk, we just get to swing in for a bunch of damage and draw a bunch of cards. So, seems pretty good. Card draw, you know, best 3-word phrase in Magic, draw a card. Next, speaking of drawing a card, well, not really drawing a card, but tutoring a card, we've got Sea Hunter. 2 blue for a 2/2 mercenary. We can pay 3 and tap it to search our library for a merfolk and put that card into play, then shuffle our library. Now this is a tutor. Forget about that Forerunner of Heralds or whatever. This is a tutor. Forerunner of the Heralds looks up to that card. Next up, we have Surge Banner. 2 blue for a 2/2 merfolk wizard whenever it becomes tapped. We can pay 1 and a blue. If we do, return target permanent to its owner's hand. And with a combination of a card a little bit later, this one, we can actually tap Surge Banner to make it blue, and then that helps pay for the cost to bounce a permanent. Notice it doesn't say non-land permanent. So if our opponent plays a bounce land or something and they bounce a land to their hand, then we'll just make them bounce. Then we'll just bounce their bounce land, and then they got to replay 2 lands. Next up, Tidal Courier, another one of my favorite cards in the deck. 4 mana 1/2. That's not very good. Pay 4 mana to give it flying until end of turn, so it's essentially an 8 mana 1/2 with flying. Also not very good. But when it comes into play, reveal the top 4 cards of our library, put all merfolk cards revealed this way into our hand, and the rest right on the bottom of our library. So, I really like this card. You know, just card advantage if we hit a merfolk, and if we don't hit a merfolk, we just get to ship everything to the bottom. Merfolk, very important. But not a merfolk, still very important. Part of the plan to our deck. Mercfiend Liege, almost merfolk. 2 hybrid mana, blue-green. For a 4/4 horror, other green creatures get +1/+1, and other blue creatures get +1/+1. That's, you know, that's pretty good, but then we get to untap all of our green and or blue creatures we control during each other player's untap step. So we get 4 untap steps for all of our creatures. How sweet is that? I mean, come on. It's not a merfolk, but it's good enough to be in the deck. Next up, Waterspout Weavers. 3 blue for a 3/3 merfolk wizard. Now, I said the other one that gave flying wasn't very important. This one is very important. At the beginning of our upkeep, we get to look at the top card of our library, or we may look at the top card of our library. If it shares a creature type with Waterspout Weavers, so merfolk or wizard, although we don't have any just generic wizards, they're all merfolk, we can reveal it. If we do, each creature we control gains flying until end of turn. This is how we bash in for a bunch of damage if our opponents don't have islands. So, and our final creature, Deep Channel Mentor, 5 and a blue for a 2/2 merfolk. But bam, 6 mana for a 2/2 merfolk is not very good. Well, if our blue creatures become unblockable, I think it's a pretty good card. So, that'll round out our creatures, all 31 of them. Now, very quickly, we will go to the instants and sorceries. I'm going to kind of blaze through these because most of them are pretty common. Rapid Hybridization, 1 mana, destroy target creature, can't be regenerated. Its controller puts a 3/3 green frog lizard into play. Next up, Counterspell, counter target spell, one of my favorite cards, if not my favorite card in Magic. Cyclonic Rift, 2 mana, return target non-land permanent you don't control to its owner's hand. And if we have 7 mana, we can overload it and return each non-land permanent we don't control to its owner's hand. Heroic Intervention. 1 and a green, permanents you control gain hexproof and indestructible till end of turn. Another good protection spell for us. Naturalize, 1 and a green to destroy target soul ring. Or enchantment, I guess. Beast Within, 2 and a green to destroy target permanent. Its controller puts a 3/3 green beast token onto the battlefield. Harrow, 2 and a green for an instant. As an additional cost, we sacrifice a land, and we get to search our library for 2 basic lands, put them into play, shuffle our library. Harvest Season, 2 and a green, search our library for up to X basic lands, where X is the number of tapped creatures we control, put those lands onto the battlefield, tap, shuffle our library. Since we're tapping all of our stuff for Kumena, we can search our library for 1, 3, 5, 7, 12, 27 lands. If we had 27 basics. Explosive Vegetation, 3 and a green, search our library for 2 basic lands, put them on the battlefield tapped. Attempt with Discovery, search our library for land for 3 and a green, not super great. But for each opponent that does it, since it's got Tempting Offer, for each opponent that does it, we also get to search for an additional land. Notice, not basic land, just regular land. Next up, the card that all of my friends are going to hate. Triumph of the Hordes, 2 green for a sorcery until end of turn. Creatures you control get +1/+1 and gain trample. Let's just pretend the card stops there because my friends won't play against it if they know that the deck has Infect. So, friends, if you're watching this, just pretend like you didn't see that. 4 blue for a sorcery. For River's Rebuke, return all non-land permanents target player controls to their owner's hands. Not Cyclonic Rift, but it's just another way to bounce all of our opponent's stuff if we need to. Next up, artifacts. Again, trying to go real quick for you guys. Sensei's Divining Top. You guys know what it does. We get to scry 3 for 1 mana, essentially, and then we can tap it to draw a card and put Sensei's Divining Top on top of our library. Soul Ring, 1 mana, tap to add 2 to your mana pool. Lightning Greaves, 2 mana equipment. Equipped creature has haste and can't be the target of spells or abilities, so it has haste and hexproof. Equipped for 0. Thought Vessel, 2 mana, taps to add 1, and we have no mana or no maximum hand size. Herald's Horn, 3 mana. When it enters the battlefield, choose a creature type. Merfolk. So then Merfolk we cast, cost 1 less to cast. And at the beginning of our upkeep, look at the top card of your library. If it's a creature card of the chosen type, we get to reveal it and put it into our hand. Next up, Mirage Mirror. 3 mana for just a generic artifact that has tap 2. Mirage Mirror becomes a copy of target artifact, creature, enchantment, or land until end of turn. Door of Destinies, 4 mana for an artifact. When it comes into play, choose a creature type, Merfolk. Whenever we play a Merfolk, put a charge counter on Door of Destinies. And Merfolk we control get +1/+1 for each charge counter on Door of Destinies. Panharmonicon, 4 mana. If an artifact or creature entering the battlefield causes a triggered ability of a permanent we control to trigger, it gets to trigger again. So, all of our enters the battlefield stuff triggers twice. Paradox Engine. Whenever we cast a spell, untap all non-land permanents we control. Again, goes very well with Cryptolith Rite, which we will get to later. So we just tap our Merfolk for mana, play a cheap spell, untap of it, untap all of our Merfolk, float a bunch of mana, etc., etc. And our final artifact of the day, Vanquisher's Banner, 5 mana for an artifact. When it enters the battlefield, we choose Merfolk, and Merfolk get +1/+1. Merfolk we control get +1/+1. And whenever we cast a Merfolk, we get to draw a card. Again, best 3 words in Magic, draw a card. Next up, and the final non-land cards, the enchantments. Cryptolith Rite, 1 and a green. Creatures we control tap for any mana. I slid that off the wrong direction, I am sorry. Next up, Curse of Bounty, 1 and a green for a curse. We get to enchant a player, and whenever enchanted player is attacked, we get to untap all non-land permanents we control, and each opponent attacking the player untaps all non-land permanents he or she controls. So we just kind of kill one person. Miro Commerce, one of my favorite cards in the deck again. Merfolk Tribal Enchantment for 1 and a blue. At the end of your turn, untap all Merfolk you control. Pretty simple. Quest for Renewal, 1 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature we control becomes tapped, put a quest counter on it. As long as there are 4 or more quest counters, we get to untap all creatures we control during each other player's untap step. So just an additional copy of Murkfiend Liege. Next up, Deep Root Waters, 2 and a blue. Whenever we cast a Merfolk, we get a Merfolk. Just token generator, get a bunch of Merfolk out. Hadana's Climb, 1 a green and a blue for a legendary enchantment. At the beginning of combat on our turn, we get to put a +1/+1 counter on target creature. Then if that creature has 3 +1/+1 counters on it, we transform Hadana's Climb into Winged Temple of Orazca. We get to tap to add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool, and we can pay 1 a green and a blue and tap it to give target creature flying, and +X/+X where X is its power. So if we need to fly in for some additional damage, we can do that. Intruder Alarm, 2 and a blue for an enchantment. Creatures do not untap during their controller's untap phases. Whenever any creature comes into play, untap all creatures. So if people don't want our stuff to untap, they can't play creatures. So seems like a pretty good bargain if you ask me. Speaking of bargains, Propaganda, 2 and a blue. Each turn, each creature cannot attack you unless its controller pays an additional 2 for that creature. So they want to attack us with 3 creatures, they gotta pay 6 mana. Sorry, that's just how it works. Tyrant of Orazca, 2 blue and a blue for a legendary enchantment artifact. Whenever a creature we control deals combat damage to a player, you may draw a card, and 1 and a blue, we tap it. Creatures your opponents control attack this turn if able. So we can make all of our opponent's stuff attack us or attack somebody else. Path of Discovery, 3 and a green for an enchantment. Whenever a creature enters the battlefield under our control, it explores. That's that whole reveal the top card. If it's a land, put it into our hand. If it's not, we get to leave it on top or put it in the graveyard and put a 1/1 counter on our creature. And finally, Mind's Dilation. 5 blue blue. Whenever an opponent casts his or her first spell each turn, player exiles the top card of his or her library. If it's a non-land card, we get to play it without paying its mana cost. Sweet. Alright. And finally, the lands. I'm going to really blaze through these, so I hope you guys are watching. Unclaimed Territory. Enters the battlefield, choose Merfolk. We can pay, add a colorless, or we can add 1 mana of any color to our mana pool to cast Merfolk. Path of Ancestry. Enters the battlefield tapped, add 1 mana to your mana pool. Add to your mana pool 1 mana of any color in your commander color identity. When that mana is spent to cast a creature spell that shares a creature type with your commander, scry 1. Command Tower. Taps to add a blue or green, or whatever your commander is. Blue or a green, not blue and a green. Alchemist's Refuge. We can tap for 1 mana, or we can pay a blue and a green and tap it. We can cast non-land cards as though they had flash this turn. Rogue's Passage. We can tap it to add 1 to our mana pool, or we can pay 4 and tap it to make target creature unblockable this turn. Novagen, Heart of Progress. We can tap it to add 1 to our mana pool, or we can tap a blue and a green and tap it. Put a +1/+1 counter on each creature that came into play this turn. Vivid Grove comes into play with 2 charge counters on it. Tap, add a green, or tap, remove a charge counter, add 1 mana of any mana color. Mosswort Bridge, Hideaway. When it enters the battlefield, this land enters the battlefield tapped. When it does, look at the top 4 cards of your library, exile 1 face down, put the rest on the bottom, and we can tap a green and tap it to play the exiled card without paying its mana cost. If creatures we control have total power 10 or greater, not too hard to achieve when we're flooding the board. Next up, Lonely Sandbar and Desert of the Mindful. Kind of the same thing. They enter the battlefield tapped, add a blue to our mana pool, but we can cycle them if we don't need the additional land. And finally, well, sort of finally, we got 11 basic islands, 8 basic forests, and our dual lands. We've got Botanical Sanctum, Lumbering Falls, Woodland Stream, Simic Guild Gate, Simic Growth Chamber, and our one only colorless land other than whatever that one was that gave unblockable Rogue's Passage, Reliquary Tower, which gives us no maximum hand size. So there you guys have it. I tried to keep this episode short. I know it was really hard because it was EDH and I got a cough. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Be sure to like down below if you enjoyed. If you want to see me play the deck, be sure to let me know down in the comment section down below. Also, let me know what legend in Ixalan you'll be building around. If it's Kumena, Zakama, the vampire, I forget the name right now, or one of the elder dinosaurs like Galta, Atali, Nezahal. Just let me know down below. It'll be down there in the comment section. So thank you guys for watching. I hope you enjoyed. Be sure to subscribe, like, comment, and I will see you guys next time.